identified in Wikipedia as an historian but also a eugenicist and Klansman, laid out his ideas in the 1920 book The Threat Against White World Supremacy, The Rising Tide of Color. It's easy to see why white nationalism and white supremacy are used interchangeably. Merriam-Webster defines a white nationalist as one of a group of militant whites who espouse white supremacy and advocate enforced racial segregation. A white supremacist is a person who believes that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races. So the supremacists take the scope farther, but I'll use the terms synonymously. It's all hate. White unites the two terms. A Kenyan or Swedish nationalist would be a proponent of those nations. While taking the terms literally, rejecting people based on a single inherited trait out of our many thousands is scientifically absurd. White supremacists ideologically link other perceived faults to that most obvious manifestation. A brief history of eugenics. Sir Francis Galton coined the term eugenics, meaning good in birth, in 1883, defining it as the science of improvement of the human race germplasm through better breeding. In 1930, Sir Ronald Elmer Fisher, another Paleface, embellished Galton's ideas by suggesting that governments reward high-income families when they have children to encourage the passing on of the prized germplasm. American botanist Luther Burbank entered the discussion in 1906 with his book The Training of the Human Plant. Burbank appreciated the value of diversity in the start of eugenics programs, even acknowledging the importance of immigration to see that diversity, but seems to confuse populations, races, and species. I have constantly been impressed with the similarity between the organization and development of plant and human life. I have come to find that the crossing of species and in selection, wisely directed, a great and powerful instrument for the transformation of the vegetable kingdom along lines that lead constantly upward. The crossing of species is to me paramount. Upon it, wisely directed and accompanied by a rigid selection of the best, and as rigid an exclusion of the poorest, rests the hope of all progress. The mere crossing of species, unaccompanied by selection, wise supervision, intelligent care, and the utmost patience, is not likely to result in marked good, and may result in vast harm. Let me lay emphasis on the opportunity now presented in the United States for observing and, if we are wise, aiding in what I think it fair to say is the grandest opportunity ever presented in developing the finest race the world has ever known after the vast mingling of races brought here by immigration. The eugenic movement in the U.S. officially began in 1910, when Charles Davenport established the Eugenics Record Office at Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island. His team compiled data from all manner of institutions that warehouse the feeble-minded, criminal, promiscuous, or socially dependent, and attributed their diagnoses to single genes, well before anyone knew what a gene even was. Interest in eugenics persisted. One notorious case took place, ironically given the white supremacist confrontation this summer, in Charlottesville, 90 years ago. 17-year-old Carrie Buck was tried for having a mother who lived in an asylum for the feeble-minded and for daring to have a similarly impaired daughter following rape. Carrie was herself deemed feeble-minded, despite being a B student, leading Sir Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. to famously rule, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Carrie became the first person sterilized to prevent future births of socially inadequate offspring. And then came the Nazis, with their own version of controlled breeding that took negative as well as positive turns. The 1933 Nazi law for the prevention of hereditarily diseased offspring, aka the sterilization law, established genetic health courts to prevent people with any of several vague conditions, only a few of which are actually inherited, from having children. 2 years later, the Lebensborn program placed the offspring of single women impregnated by the SS into Aryan households, and did the same for blonde, blue-eyed orphans. But the Nazis were picky. Acceptable whites came from Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Ireland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. Unacceptable were those from Jewish, ethnic Pole, Slavic, or Roma ancestry. Nor were people of African ancestry included among the cherished, but they were not exterminated en masse. The underlying assumption of the Nazis, Aryan genetic material is the best. The mechanism of perpetuating it, selective breeding. The Nazi science focused on selection, ignoring mutation, which happens in any DNA. It also steadfastly ignored the odds of recessive disease that come with endogamy, marrying within a group. Silencing Stormfront. The state of our knowledge of genetics today makes white supremacist ideology even more offensive than early eugenic thinking. Charlottesville, Stat News and other high-profile media reported on a meeting in Montreal in which two sociologists described their investigation of the reactions of white supremacists to genetic ancestry testing results that indicated that they weren't as pure as they thought. I awaited a full report, media coverage being somewhat short on detail. I spent the final weekend of August reading the tome from Aaron Panofsky and Joan Donovan, sociologists from UCLA. That sucked me into Stormfront, the online community source for their many intriguing quotes. I could only read it in small doses, but noted posts indicating a good grasp of genetics. My analysis, Memo the White Nationalist from a Geneticist, Why White Purity is a Terrible Idea, was published online in Science Trends. I pulled the most alarming quotes from the Stormfronters, analyzed that they were accurate and not, pointed out the flaws and assumptions of DNA ancestry testing and interpretation, and reviewed the genetics behind skin color. I plan to write another article, using a different set of Stormfront remarks, here for my weekly DNA Science post. I blog when the president's false equivalency of white supremacy with people protesting their hatred reemerged. And of course it did, our tweeting leader perhaps resentful of sharing the spotlight with hurricanes. So a few days ago, I clicked on Stormfront to find some right new examples of neo-Nazi speak for this week's post. Denied. Not to worry, the American Nazi Party is the place to go for those with less melanin panicking over the fact that by 2055, most of the U.S. citizenry won't be black. I tried sneaking into Stormfront through Wikipedia, where I discovered Stormfront was a white nationalist, white supremacist and neo-Nazi internet forum, and the web's first major racial hate site. In August 2017, Stormfront's registrar seized its domain name due to complaints that it promoted hatred and that some of its members were linked to murder. It was, not surprisingly, judging by the tiki torch holders in Charlottesville not even ashamed enough to hide behind white hoods, Stormfront traffic had surged since the 2016 election season and the presence of those who might support white supremacy ensconced in the White House. Genetic testing became a hot topic. Stormfront vanished on August 29, 2017. My memo to white nationalists from a geneticist appeared August 28, 2017. Coincidence? Most likely. But I'd like to believe that my article helped to bury this meeting ground of hate. Fight eugenics. Support dysgenics. Reply. So
Here's Margaret Sanger in her quotes. You Planned Parenthood people, you watch this video. I want you, and all you women, you feminists, all you white feminists and stuff, even black feminists, it goes along with the white feminists. Watch this. Read it. Let me read it for you. I believe that white people were superior to other races. I embraced Hitler's eugenics ideology and I support the Ku Klux Klan. I push for the forced sterilization of all those less fortunate than me. I oppose a charity, welfare programs for the poor because I believe that they were better off dead. I usher in a war where abortion has enabled my idea of some lives matter less. I am Margaret Sanger, founder. Look at this. Founder, Planned Parenthood, hero of the liberal left. There's your hero. There's your hero, Ruth Ginsburg. Your hero, Hillary Clinton. Your hero. Let me show you. Most merciful thing the large family that does this member is to kill it. Margaret Sanger, Barack Obama. We're truly grateful to have you, that you planned her. God bless you. First black president, Barack Obama. Explain this, people. You Democrats. Explain this. Eugenics has to such start long by my time has been defined as including feel-free and prevention of contraception. We used to have chopped up again a form of selective breeding. It has nothing to do with women's health. It has nothing to do with this shit. This old crazy bitch, that's what she was. Got her quotes right here. And y'all, and if you're a black woman that runs the organization, you run the eugenics organization. Here it is right here. Margaret Sanger, founder Planned Parenthood, October 6, 19, in order to eliminate what she thought was the inferior races, was Orientals, Jews, and blacks, and she referred to them as human weeds. Her father was a village atheist. She died of alcohol and a drug addict. Come on, come on. Please justify this. Please, someone justify this. You have half the world about to threaten to kill the justices over this bitch who died 90-something years ago. And I hope she burning in hell every day of her life. Look at this. This is your quotes. This is who supported Margaret Sanger, Hillary Clinton, in the eugenics program. That's for you Democrats. This is where Hitler developed her idea of the master race, exterminating Jews. But she's a hero. Even this would not be said because I believe that not now immediately we should be able to nationalize sterilization for certain genetic types of our population who are being encouraged to breed and would die out the government not feeding them. And this is Hillary Clinton.